If you're listening on podcast, be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel on YouTube at Wild and Weird WV.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast. Welcome back to Wild and Weird Radio, everybody. Thanks for joining us yet again. And the odds are good that you are listening to us right now on your way to Bigfoot Mecca, the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. And if you're on your way and you're listening to us, we are going to most likely be on the bottom floor in the round. And we got 2 booths set up. Come by, hang out with us, talk to us for a little bit. We want to get your stories and we want to meet you guys. As always, I mean, OBC is always a great time. And then we've got Woodbooger Jamboree coming up on the 20th of this month in Racine, West Virginia. You want to catch that one for sure. So don't forget that. And other than that, man, how are you guys doing?
I'm recovering.
Ron is recovering from a Wild Bill experience.
I had an encounter.
Yeah.
With a crazy Marine. No, he was awesome.
Yeah, he's one of the best dudes on the planet, man.
Yeah. Spent the evening with Wild Bill out there at Dave Spink's Monster Con. And got to meet a lot of new people.
We did.
You know?
It was almost a whole new crowd for us.
Yeah, it was wild. Good presentation. It was a really good presentation that we did.
Presentation went great.
If you got to see it, then good on you. If you didn't, well, you missed it. No, I'm kidding. We'll probably rework that one, and you'll get to see it later this year too. It was really cool because we actually talked about some of our data sets, and we revealed a little bit of data that we hadn't fully put out into one big cohesive package before. And it's interesting to look at, isn't it, when you look at it as the package
all at once.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I got to hang out there with Stan and Eric and Tom, and just a massive amount of people that we actually run with there from time to time. Got to talk to Ron Murphy a little bit. It was cool. It was good times. It was really good times.
Yeah, it's always a good time hanging out with Eric Altman and Tom Mihawk. Those guys are great.
Yep.
And then Stan, of course. We got to
mustn't forget Stan. Mustn't forget Stan. Stan has agreed to join us at some point for a live, by the way. That should be interesting. That should be interesting. Ron's going to be up, and next, as soon as his new book drops, he will be on to discuss it. So be looking for that.
Nice. That'll be
fun. Yeah. It's going to be really cool.
So what about you, Brandon? How's things going on your end?
Oh, just battling allergies.
Oh yeah, man.
We're all doing that, dude.
Man, I was telling Ron, I was this close to calling you the night before I left and be like, hey, you want to run up to Richwood with us? But if you're fighting allergies now, well, the pollen was insane up there because they're about a week and a half behind where me and Brandon live, and that pollen would have. I was getting itchy eyes and burning throat just standing there talking.
I had it, yeah, last night coming home. So you would not have fared well, dude.
Feel great now, though.
Nasty tree pollen.
Oh, it was absolutely tree pollen. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, guys, what have we got in the news?
Oh, do we have news
coming up? Time.
Is it that time? Okay, let me go over here and find our news buttons. I would like to touch before we go into the news a big humongous thank you to everyone who has been listening and apparently watching and commenting, and because we've been getting a lot more. And huge thanks to everyone. We're really close to where we need to be, and when we hit it, man, are you guys gonna be in for it? Okay, Brandon, what you got on the news desk?
Well, nothing big, but some interesting stuff I found. There was an article that was talking about some old pyramids in Greece that apparently don't get talked about very much. And one of them they dated recently, and they think it's actually older than all of the pyramids in Egypt.
Yeah, I don't believe that crap. I don't think there's anything older than what a couple hundred years.
Yeah,
So,
dude, that makes sense.
Yeah, man.
It's because of the firmament, right?
Right. That's what I was getting at. I'm like, I don't. Obviously,
Well,
it can't exist. Therefore, I'm correct and you're wrong. No,
the
tell me
thing
more
the
about.
pyramids,
Tell me more about these ancient pyramids.
well, the thing about dating them is where they're made of stone. It's you can't just date stone, so they base it off of
Correct.
things they find inside of the pyramids.
Uh huh.
So that's definitely not accurate as to how old they could be.
Right. I agree with
I
that.
think, I think the best way to probably date one, and like again, it's probably not the most structure friendly way to date it, is like if you could get under one of the blocks and go, I don't know, maybe a foot or so back
Hmm?
and get some material from in between the blocks. That would be, because that, I mean, you would think, hypothetically, that would be there when the two blocks were placed on top of one another. And
Hypothetically, yeah.
it'd give you a rough date.
Yeah. Well, some of the mortar would have something in it. You would
Yeah,
think.
there's got to be something organic there.
Yeah.
But that
Like-
that mortar could have also been from like a renovation or something too.
Right. It very well could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause,
You're absolutely
humans,
right.
we always repurpose everything,
Oh,
especially
yes.
if it's huge and made of stone.
Right.
Well, that's true. Yeah. I mean, why build a giant stone palace when there's one sitting here? It's perfectly good. You just got to patch it up a little bit and then claim it for herself. But no, that's interesting that they claim that it could be older. That's I don't know. I think that's odd, just based on the fact that we don't even know how old the regular pyramids are. So I just think that's weird to say, is what I'm getting at. Because there's the pyramids are only 3,000 years old. Are they? I mean, they could be 10,000. Who knows? We don't even know at this
According
point.
to Dr. Hawass, he's convinced that they're 3,000 years old.
Well, of course, he's Dr. Hawass. And he's out on tour this year, too. You can go out and catch him. So I'm sure he'll tell you all about it.
It's interesting. It really is interesting because that article talks about how all over that section of the Mediterranean, there's pyramids that are all built very similar,
Hmm?
but they're supposed to be too old for navigation. But then last week there was that article about Neanderthals building boats 300,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So
That-
was it really too far back for boat travel?
I don't know. How do we
No.
know they were Neanderthals who built the boats? There's another question.
Yeah.
I'm just
Well,
saying.
they based that off of tools they found with the organic stuff they found to date with,
Mhm.
and they claim that those same tools are found in Neanderthal burial sites.
It's
So
interesting.
that's how they put the two together.
So we couldn't have somebody who, I don't know, dug up a Neanderthal burial site and had it on their boat, taking
Like,
it
hey,
around.
this will do.
I mean,
Could be.
we just got to go for the, flat out theory, don't we? That it's just, this is that conventional, convenient, linear thinking that humans are so accustomed to. Yeah. Anyway,
There are anthropologists out there who think boat travel has existed for 1,000,000 years and not
Mhm.
3,000 or whatever they think it is now.
well, it's very possible. I mean, someone had to traverse the oceans, I mean, they knew they weren't going to fall off the edge. It wasn't until the Europeans came along and convinced them of that for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, the Polynesians all have stories that they arrived on those islands thousands and thousands of years ago, like way
did.
back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. What else you got?
Really? There was an article I found where one of the directors for a museum in Iraq, his name was Kazem Finjan, I believe is how you pronounce it. He was actually he was a former transport minister for Iraq.
Okay.
He believes that the ziggurats that the Sumerians built were actually launch pads for spaceships.
I've actually
And he
heard this
answers this
before.
because of their knowledge of the stars and stuff like that. How
Hmm.
they had a heliocentric graph of the universe on some of their clay tablets that they found.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually heard that before, and yeah, there's a lot to be said about the origin of the ancient astronaut theory in Sumeria. Let's just say that, and I'm sure we'll probably do an in depth on that at some point. But I could I could see that. I could see it.
I mean, it'd have to be using a non-fossil fuel to
No,
take
Joe.
off. Otherwise, you'd
No,
have
Joe.
tons.
No. They mined gold with the help of human slaves they created.
I thought it was Bigfoot slaves.
Well, they were dumb human slaves, so maybe that's what it was. I don't know. It just depends on
So what
what
you're
theory
saying
you want to
is
believe.
they made an ancient version of the TR-3B.
They
There
made
we
an
go.
ancient version of the
It's a
TR-3B.
TR-3B.
Yeah, that's what they did, man. They had that, and no, honestly, you're right. I mean, who knows what kind of technology they were using? But
Yeah.
my thing is about the whole launch pad thing, Joe. Was it a conventional type launch pad? If it was, then I mean,
You would expect a ton of carbon buildup,
right?
like, and it'd stick around for a while. Like when you basically cook rock with the fire of the surface of the sun, it's going to leave char.
Well, I mean, you can find
Well,
it
those were
today
made
in
out of,
caves,
clay
man.
bricks.
Yeah.
What?
You know,
Clay bricks.
Yeah, the ziggurats were.
We would, yeah. I mean, there would be
Wouldn't that melt
charring.
them?
there'd be tons of residue.
I don't know that it would melt them, but I know that there would be clay residue. It would it would probably shatter them at some point. Yeah,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
the molecular,
Any kind of moisture get in that clay,
yeah.
things be popping off like.
So
Well, unless
Yeah.
they were taking off like UFOs and not have any visible means of propulsion.
Right,
Which is
I mean,
possible.
if the ziggurats were some sort of landing pad, it would have to have been some sort of ancient astronaut, like
advanced is
alien
what you're saying.
advanced technology sort of deal.
Yeah, or it could have also been just mimicking on the human part.
Right.
Yeah.
They
Because
were
mimicking on the human part, they were making giant trebuchets and launching humans into
yeah.
the atmosphere. Only
Yeah,
for all
just like
tragically
they
different.
saw their gods do. They were like, okay, we're going to try this. This is to honor them, and
Yep.
they built this giant, and just
1, 2, yeet.
yeah, exactly. That's probably what happened. No, I don't know, man. I really don't. I'm just
But no,
guessing.
the theory has been around for a while, and it's not the first
Yeah.
time that it's been thrown around either. So
Oh no, and I actually, I could see it, but I could see it as a highly advanced, like you said, or as just like a tribute kind of thing as well. That they build it as a monument
Yeah.
to something. I could see that.
could have been like
for sure.
similar to the Peruvian landing strips.
Yeah, it could be like what are they? The cargo cults.
Yep.
It could be like that. Just where they used to worship the planes when
Yep.
During World War II when
And
they
so
were
they
dropping
built this
supplies.
thing hoping something would land there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, they went as far as to make these elaborate runways and even made fake planes out of stick. Yeah,
Stick planes.
yeah, big stick and pretty detailed.
Pretty
actually.
elaborate.
Yeah, pretty elaborate. Just hoping that they, the space people or the sky people would come and, bring them candy again because we were bringing them chocolate because that's
And
what you do.
t-shirts.
And, hey, it's chocolate. I mean, Quetzalcoatl did it.
Yeah.
Just saying. Anyway,
Yeah. You're not wrong.
what else you got, Brandon? You got us some more news?
Well, Nick Pope
Oh
apparently
man.
went for a rant and is basically demanding that the UK government do a public investigation of UAPs just like America did.
Oh really?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can't do any worse. That's all I'm
Getting
going to
ready
say.
like, so he's asking for them to just
That's-
fumble the ball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not even going to
Unless maybe-
respond any further.
Maybe
That's-
he's just looking for another job, though. He's trying to get back in the defense ministry. So what do we got next, Brandon?
I would love for them to give a British version of the speech that Kirkpatrick gave and just make it sound super snobby and British.
And with a powder wig. Yeah.
This is somebody else's predicament.
Oh man.
All right, then let's move along.
I
What
think
else?
that wraps us up on the news.
Is that the news?
I
Are we
think that's
good?
it. It's been a real slow week for news, guys.
All right, all right, all right. I had to.
Sky Daddy McConaughey.
Anyway, all right. Let's make this somebody else's problem. You know that's going to be a shirt at some point, right?
Oh, it's gotta be.
It's got to be. All right. So what's going down this week, gentlemen? What is the big deal? What are we doing? What's the topic? What's the word?
Well, this week's episode, I think we're doing the recovery of the hominids, right?
I don't know. I thought you were going to say recovery of those UAP that we shot down there about 2 months ago, and I'm like, you got some in the garage or what? Because nobody's sharing.
I did. I went up and bumbled around the lake.
You got them? Okay,
Got
cool. Exclusive reveal.
Man, I can't wait. I hope somebody eventually, like, it's going to be some redneck on a
It's gonna be
trolling boat
wild.
is going to go up there and be like, I'm going to get it.
Oh
get
my
this
God.
UFO
Could
out
you
of the
imagine?
woods.
Wait, just before we go into our main topic, I just want to discuss this for 1 second now because you went down that rabbit hole. Can you imagine if that was shot down over West Virginia?
Oh, man. It
Can you
already be in somebody's boat.
imagine? Oh yeah, it would definitely be. I mean, they would have beat the U.S. government to it. They would have went out there and drug it off the hill and took it to the garage, and probably broke it down and looking for copper.
Turned it into a steel.
You know?
Some
Or
homeless
steel,
people be trying to
yeah.
scrap it.
It's possible, man. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying we are far more resourceful. That's
This
what I'm
here's
saying.
real moonshine.
Yeah. From the moon. But yeah, man, I mean, I could see that. That's a
Oh, yeah.
proud heritage right there, West Virginia. I mean, there ain't very many mountaineers that can, get some space to breathe and turn it into a steel. But by God, if one's going to do it, it's going to be a West Virginian. I promise you that.
But
Anyway.
if something like that would have crashed here, they'd have been on it within days.
They would have. They would have literally been on it within days. So, Anyway, so we're doing what'd you say, hominy grits or something?
Yeah, hominy grits. We're
I
gonna
like
talk
hominy.
about
Can I ask you a question as a chef, really quick, before we start for real? Hominy. What is it?
Hominy is just like corn.
Okay, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
What do you do to corn to make it look like that, though?
It's
Seriously.
dried corn first, like cracked corn.
Okay.
And then it's hydrated.
Okay. So that's what has that texture.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. All right, see, I just wanted to know, and I know inquiring minds out there wanted to know too. So now we
Like
know.
when you're making cornmeal, right?
Yeah.
The process of making cornmeal, it's the other part that they don't use in cornmeal,
Okay.
essentially.
I got you. So basically, whatever the husk, right? That's gone, and now it's just the squishy stuff.
Yep, pretty much.
See, that's a technical term, the squishy stuff.
It is. It's just squishy stuff. It's
All right.
technical.
Well, now we know how homony's made, everyone. So you're welcome.
But yeah.
Go ahead.
So anyway, we're gonna dig in. We touched a little bit on it last week in last week's episode, talking about the advancements of Bigfoot research and where it's at today. But it was a designated episode, and it is all about the possibility of these other hominids, other than Bigfoot, that are out there and being observed.
Yeah.
So
we're just talking about the to be straight on this. This for you flesh and blooders. This is yours, right? Pretty much.
Oh yeah, this is very much a
Yeah.
flesh and blood only kind of category.
Okay. Awesome. Let's dive into that because that's it's a prevalent theory.
Yeah.
And there's actually a lot of weight behind it. So
There is.
Let's hear it.
And there's the big one we're going to save for last because we talked about it last week as well, and it's the Indonesian discoveries that they're making, and they're connecting these modern day sightings with fossil records, and they're thinking that there's a good possibility that these guys are actually still running around out there in the bush. But one of the first ones that we're going to talk about is the orang pendek, which is the little man of the forest in Indonesia. And the orang pendek is probably second to Flores man. Is probably one of the most likely to be almost extinct.
Now, Joe, next to Flores man, I mean, we're talking about something that's around the same size, or is it
Well,
close?
this-
What's the story?
This was a gift from Cliff Barrickman,
Yeah.
Oh,
and this is a footprint, alleged footprint of an orang pendek.
Okay.
And you can kind of see the way the toe is splayed here all the way around, and then you've got this kind of
you know what
prehensile
that kind of looks
thumb.
like? That reminds
Right.
me of the Honey Island swamp beast.
Oh, now the Honey Island thing was a lot longer. Now the shape
Yeah, it
here,
was.
with if I were to take these two fingers off, that would be more like the Honey Island if you would
Yeah.
extend it. But the Honey Island tracks, it's a really good possibility that those were hoaxed, because there were shoes found that had, like,
Oh.
even with the crooked toe, like that's how they got it. It
I
was
gotcha.
a modified taxidermied alligator hand.
Yeah, it was
Oh.
static, is what you're saying.
And it was so it was a taxidermied alligator hand that had like one of the fingers removed, and they turned it and they screwed it onto the base of these shoes, and a guy was walking around out in the woods or out in the swamp and cast them. And that those shoes were actually discovered.
Wow.
And but that's a good chance. But I see what you're saying though. Like if you were to abduct those fingers, you would have that similar kind of shape to it. But allegedly, this is from an orang pendek, and it came from the Orang Pendek Project. And there's tons of footprints that are being found from these things, and they're described as being small, hairy, like around 3.5, 4 feet tall, roughly. Hairy, long arms, looks a lot like an orangutan. So that's why it's the orang pendek,
Sure.
right? And because it just means a little man of the forest. And so it's a very good possibility that thing's still running around, because there's hair samples that are being found. There's tons of footprints that are being discovered, and I'm sure there are some being hoaxed, because these indigenous tribes that are there, a lot of them are very, very poor, and they're selling these
They need to do
casts.
something. Yeah, right. To make money. If
um,
someone's going to believe it, they're going to provide a product, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
how
so
big
you
are
got-
these things, Joe?
Like in the 3.5, 4 foot range.
So they're 3.5, 4 foot.
Yep.
So we're
I'd
talking
say-
about a little guy, right? I mean, this
Yeah,
isn't
little dude.
like Bigfoot. This is like a
Nope.
little foot.
This is a little guy, and
Gotcha.
the footprints. You saw the footprints. It doesn't match anything like the 5-toed footprints,
Right.
where it's like a more human-like foot.
Right.
This is very, very Pongan in nature. The foot
Okay.
looks like an orangutan, like a smaller orangutan foot.
So what about social structure? Do they have any idea, like if they found them in trackways, casts?
There's been
nest
several
sites, anything like
trackways
that?
found. Some of them are like carrying young, but they seem to be very solitary.
Okay.
Which again, that is very indicative of the orangutan. The orangutans don't live in family groups.
Sure. Yeah.
You'll have a male that will patrol a territory, and there'll be some females that live out in that area. But the females will keep their young for I think around 5 to 8 years.
Okay.
And so that you can kind of almost expect that same sort of behavior in nature with the orang pendek, that the males will be free roaming, and your females will be raising the young, and possibly be raising the young for nearly a decade.
Wow. So these guys basically are they're. I mean, has there been any sightings? That's what I'm trying to get at. It's like,
There
has
been
been sightings. It's
there's
not
been
just
a lot of
footprints.
sightings, and there's actually zoologists that are intrigued by this.
Okay.
It's hard to get zoologists to admit in the United States that they're interested in the Bigfoot phenomena. However, there's many zoologists and biologists who are extremely interested in the orang pendek, because there's fossil record of this thing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's that's a pretty compelling case that says that something could be there, right?
Yep.
And it's obviously intelligent. It's hiding from people. It's not letting itself be seen as
You
much.
don't think that could be an
Monkey.
offshoot of Homo florensis?
Well, it's on a different island.
So no.
It's a possibility. It could be. But if the images and the video and the reconstructions of the Flores man are accurate, then this guy, the Flores man, doesn't have nearly as much hair. It's hair covered in the same kind of sense that we're hair covered.
Okay. So it's sparse.
It's really sparse hair covering, whereas the orang pendek is
a monkey.
believed to be very covered in like a reddish, ruddy hair.
Yeah. So the orang pendek is really close to a primate, right?
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
very
creature
very
is what we're
primate
talking
like.
about.
You
Okay.
can see that in the footprint. There's been some handprint casts. I believe Cliff has a handprint. I could be wrong on that one, so don't quote it.
Sure,
I believe
sure.
He has a handprint, and the handprints are very because I have seen pictures, but they're very very ape-like.
Okay.
Do you think it's
Okay.
more like an evolved orangutan then?
Kind of, but they're actually a little smaller than orangutan.
Okay.
So maybe like a cousin of them?
Possibly, very possible. And there's another one that is briefly mentioned, same kind of area in Indonesia as the orang pendek, but it was the orang gadang, which does more or less resemble a Bigfoot. It's in the 6 foot and up club,
Yeah.
and it is the big man of the forest.
Okay.
And there's that one to me falls more in the less likely. And I'm just saying I've not seen any evidence of physical evidence like track cast or anything like that, but the indigenous people there will tell you stories of these large hair covered creatures that sound more like a Bigfoot, and they call those the orang gadang.
Hmm.
They tend to be a little bit more aggressive based off the lore.
Okay.
And
we have tracks of those too, I'm assuming?
none that I'm
No?
aware of.
No?
But
Okay.
but the orangutan is so we're dealing with something that's in Sumatra,
Okay.
and as far as the orangutan is concerned, this creature is supposed to be in the 7.5, like 6.5 to 7.5, and some of the stories, just like here in America,
Yeah.
have these ranges of up to 12 feet tall. Now, a 12-foot tall creature, like we're just going to put this into perspective. 12 feet tall is also going to have quite the breadth of width to it,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Anybody who has seen those 12-foot tall Home Depot skeletons in
Yeah.
real life, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we
Yep.
just had this conversation the other night at the VIP dinner, and that was actually one of the analogies that we were using to talk about that. It's like, yeah, that's insane. I mean, if you stood underneath one of these things and looked up at it, it's not just the height, like you said, it's the width, it's the girth of those bones, and that's
So-
the bones of a skeleton. Imagine with flesh on it and muscles, how big this thing would have to be.
Right.
Like 5.5 thick chest.
All right, dude, yeah, it would
Gotta
be
a
monstrous.
Big chest on that thing.
It would be monstrous. You couldn't hide something that big.
Now, I just looked up real quick on the foot track cast because I wanted to see if there's anything there, and there is a foot track.
Okay.
It's very wide. Like, I mean, it actually does kind of resemble some of the Bigfoot tracks, but it looks just looking at this one, it looks kind of sketchy, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
I'm seeing ways where this could we could easily recreate this out in the mud. But another name for this one, as well, indicating more of the primate line,
Mhm.
is the orang mawas, which is monkey person.
Monkey person.
Yep, or primate person. So they the locals, though, as far as the orang gadang is concerned, now this is different than the orang pendek, because the orang pendek
Right.
don't see this creature as paranormal or supernatural.
Yeah.
But the locals tend to believe that the orang gadang is supernatural or at least has roots in the supernatural.
Really?
And another nickname for them is Hantu Tengigi, which translates to tall ghost.
Oh, that's nice.
Wow.
So
Tall
that's,
ghost.
I figured you would find that one intriguing. That's why I wanted to include this one, because it's an obscure possible homonym, but it does seem to be rooted elsewhere. And what does that sound like? You get those weird paranormal tall ghost description?
Yeah, it comes right out of the hills here, doesn't it?
We get those kind of stories as well here, and it further supports the hypothesis that there's more than one weird thing going on out in the forest.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting that you've got an indigenous tribe talking about something that an indigenous tribe around the world is talking about. So
absolutely.
And they were no contact. So that's even more bizarre. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's an interesting one.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what else do we have over there, Joe?
Well, we've got another one here. It is the
we're going to touch on Gigantopithecus. I mean, I'm sure we are, right?
We're going to get to Gigantopithecus because that one's on the fossil record, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
But I want to get to him in just a second. The name was slipping me there for a second, so I had to look it up, be more specific. So this is the Sisimite, which is the Central American Bigfoot.
Yeah, I've heard of this one actually.
Yep. And
Sisimite, right? Is that how they do it, or is it?
It's spelled Sisimite.
Sure, we'll take it.
Yeah, Sisimite.
Okay.
And this creature is very much a Bigfoot-like creature. However, one of the attributes that are attributed to this guy is that his feet are on backwards, and that's why it's so hard to find one and track one, because its feet are not pointing the traditional direction.
How can this be?
It doesn't make any anatomical sense whatsoever.
No. I would think you would have something falling flat out of its face every time it tried to take a step.
That sounds like something that some hunters made up to.
Right.
This is never found.
Yeah.
They
They walk
walk backwards.
backwards. That's
right. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to my mind is like these guys went out, they saw these large human-like tracks, and they're like, we never saw where they went or what this creature was, so its feet must be on backwards.
I mean, that makes logical sense. So, yeah, I mean, I can see that.
Another interesting thing about this, but this could allude to monkeys here, right?
Yeah.
It's said that it only has 4 fingers.
Oh.
So no thumbs. It doesn't have an opposable thumb. It's just got the 4 fingers. And
that's bizarre.
It is.
This one's really bizarre.
But when you start looking at some of these attributes that it talks about, the height of it, the way its feet don't match up, it's very possible that these guys could be seeing a really large spider monkey.
Right.
Because you've got the way the spider monkeys swing is they've got thumbs, they're not thumbless, but their 4 fingers are really, really long, and their thumbs are basically just like there for basic minimal use.
Yeah. So of all things, this one can probably be just maybe basically a known primate that's just misidentified.
Misidentified. It very well
possibly. Yeah. Okay.
It because it just doesn't make sense that something's feet would be on.
Anatomically, it makes no sense whatsoever.
No.
You can't have something that would throw off the balance so much. I just don't see that. Maybe I'm backwards, but I can't really fathom that.
And
how that would work.
Part of this too, that could be attributing to some of this is that in these caves in Central America, they find bones.
Yeah.
And what kind of creature would have been down there only has 3 or 4 fingers that they would find bones from? What really large fingers, and that would be the ground sloth.
Yeah.
They've found tons of remains of ground sloths and mammoth bones in some of these caves and sinkholes.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's very possible that the Sisamite could be completely
Misinterpreted
because they could be founding bones, and it's got 4 fingers, and due to the resting position of the body when it's found, with the resting position of the remains, the feet could appear that they were on backwards, because when a thing dies, for example, the dead velociraptor in Jurassic Park, the fossil, and this is it's based on a real fossil that's in I can't remember. I think it's in the Chicago, the museum up there in Chicago. But the raptor's back is curved and its neck is tilted back, and the tail
I'm aware
and
of that
nose
one.
are almost touching. It's almost making a circle.
Yeah.
It's because the tendons are tightening up, and it causes this flexion. And the same thing could be happening during the process of rigor mortis setting in, that these ground sloths' feet gnarl back and lay back in a more prone position than what they naturally would. And they could look as if they were backwards.
Maybe, yeah.
Do you think it's possible that there might be a small population of ground sloth that still exists down there?
Oh man, yeah. There's too many
might be a
stories, and there's we've spoke with people who've been on expeditions into Central America who said they've interviewed people that had big sliders on their side, and they looked like big claws, and they described being attacked by a large hairy creature, and it sound like what they described sounds like a big giant ground sloth. So it's possible. I mean, there's certain white thing creatures here in North America that, because white thing's kind of a catch-all. You get Bigfoots, you get big white dogs, big, white other animals for that matter. But there's also a white thing that's mentioned that is a ground sloth. So we're going to hit Gigantopithecus real quick.
Okay.
You guys are familiar with
There's a lot of people who think that that's what we're dealing with. So
it is. There's a lot, or there are. It's not. It is.
Yeah. There's a lot.
So what do you guys know? Tell me what you guys know about Gigantopithecus blacki.
Okay, it's extinct.
That's the big one.
I mean, that's all I need to know to
Right.
rule it out, unless there's a secret gigantic creature somehow hiding. I mean, this thing was huge.
Oh, it was monstrous.
Yes.
It absolutely, and that's why so many people, including Grover Krantz, and for a time, Dr. Meldrum, were great proponents of the idea that Gigantopithecus blacki was at least an ancestor to what we have called the North American Sasquatch.
Yeah.
So Brandon, what do you think with the Gigantopithecus?
Well, the more I look into it, Gigano basically was just a huge orangutan.
Yes.
What we understand from the little bit of bones that they found of it so far.
Yep, and it was Pongan. They've been able to, based off those hundreds of jawbones, fragments, and teeth that they've discovered, they've been able to map the genome. So they have the genome for it, and it is related to. It's in the Pongan family. It's a gigantic orangutan. That info, I think the genome was completed, I think, in like 2019, I believe. Again, don't quote me on that. I'm going purely off memory, but it's fairly recent that the genome was mapped.
Yeah.
And that would basically mean that the North American Sasquatch, what people have been seeing here and from native tradition and everything, would have been more like an orangutan. But that's not what's described.
It's not.
The forelimbs, the arms are excessively long, but the lower limbs on an orangutan are not. You're dealing with someone that's got short, stumpy legs. Even with the orang pendek, its arms are longer than the legs, and it's often seen using like all of its limbs to kind of scurry away and run off. So you're dealing with something that's very orangutan-like. But we're looking at with the orangutan. I don't think that it could have made it across the land bridge or even swam across, because the orangutans are just garbage swimmers.
Yeah. And as far as we know, they weren't smart enough to, build a boat.
Right.
So,
Unless the Neanderthals build a boat for them.
which they could have. I mean, let's throw it out there. I mean, why not? Maybe they thought that they were, travelers looking for their way
Right.
home. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think I think we can pretty much rule out Gigantopithecus, but that's just me.
Yep. I think we can too.
I kind of did a long time ago, but
Right.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not really I'm not that versed in squatchology, but enough of it I can look at and say, well, this makes more sense than this, and Gigantopithecus just doesn't make sense in the equation of Bigfoot. For me, it doesn't. I mean, I get that it's this big thing, and it proves that large hominid type creatures can
large
exist.
primates were
Sure.
like really large primates.
Sure.
I mean, Gigantopithecus was like the real King Kong.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. It's like it's a primate. It's not
Yeah.
really Is it a hominid? I mean, I guess it's
It-
hominid.
It's a hominid, but a hominin.
Okay, a hominin. All right.
Hominin is like when you start getting into the human
Got you.
family.
I got you.
So, but we're looking at a still non-human primate.
Yeah. Okay, that makes
Is
sense.
what that is. And a lot of the descriptions, even going back to First Nations tribes, they a lot of times look more human
Right.
than they would primate. You would expect some of the First Nations, especially like the PNW tribes that are
Yeah.
more prolific with their art depicting it, would have had like the big like face jowls.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it has some weird facial features.
Yeah.
It does not look like what we see today as your recognizable Bigfoot shape, which is the large shoulders and the little small head. This thing had a massive cranium, like as far as its facial features. If I'm thinking about
Yep.
the right one.
Like
And
the skull alone. There's
Yes.
recreations of skulls that you can find, and the skull
Yes.
alone is gargantuan.
Yeah.
But if you put on like the meat of what you would see on like a large male orangutan, if you would scale that up to the Gigantopithecus size, like you're talking about something's head would have
Yeah.
like the big jowls, like
Yeah,
just
it's literally King Kong. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is literally the version of King Kong.
King Kong versus Godzilla, we find out that King Kong's ancestors came from the Hollow Earth.
There you
oh
go.
yeah,
There you go.
the way that they explored Hollow Earth theory is really fun.
Oh, that was so cool.
Yeah.
I loved
Man.
it.
You can't have a hollow Earth if it's flat. Come on.
So we would be remiss if we're covering other ape-like creatures around the world if we didn't mention the Yeti.
Oh, by all means, mention the Yeti, because this is a fun one for me.
This is
Everyone
culture-
still to this day thinks that a Yeti, oh, it's a white Bigfoot. What?
Yep.
Why did you come up with that? Because you think a polar bear plays in the snow, it's white? Oh, okay. I see what you did.
Rudolph.
I see what you did there.
right, Rudolph.
I think that's where it came from. Yeah.
Yeah, the abominable snowman being
Yeah.
white. So tell us a little
The
bit
bumble.
about what the Yeti color looks like, Brandon.
So they're usually like a dark brown or like a chestnut color from the descriptions. They stand out from the snow pretty well, but there's a lot of animals that live up that high that don't blend in because they don't really have to. There's not a whole lot of predators up there.
Right. And another thing with them as well is, you have a snow line, just like any high mountain range. There's a snow line. And then below that snow line is forest.
Mm-hmm.
Why on earth would a creature live in this desolation when you have a lush forest below you? I mean, I could see frequenting going up. It's there. Why not? It's territory. The other creatures do it, so it only makes sense.
Maybe it uses that to travel between spots in the forest. That way, it's not seen.
No,
Maybe it
man.
could be doing it for that.
It goes up there because the mountain's hollow, and it can go down into the hollow earth. You
Do
know,
you subscribe to Flat Mountain Theory?
that's what I'm saying, man. It's flat mountain theory right there. No, I don't know.
But yeah, many of the Yeti descriptions, pop culture has just done it dirty. You know,
Yeah,
we
it
get this
has.
blue
Yeah.
skinned, white furred creature. When often it's this 6 foot tall, roughly creature that is chestnut in color. Sometimes up even reds are described in its fur. And if you think about the expeditions that have been done, anybody who has performed expeditions in the higher altitudes has found nothing. However, groups like Finding Bigfoot, Josh Gates have found tracks lower below the freeze line down in the forests.
Mhm.
That's where tracks have been discovered.
Not in the white zone, right? That's what you're saying.
Right, not up top. There have been, the original track that was proposed to be a
Right.
Yeti track. One second.
Yeah, I remember that. So
It-
basically, why they're thinking they're white, though, I'm thinking, Joe, is what? Because of camouflage, evolution, kind of like really the same thing with polar bears. They exist in a white plain, so therefore camouflage, nature makes them white.
Yeah, I think that's just
mean,
people's ignorance for not researching it. For
well,
not
yeah,
looking into it.
there's that
Yeah.
too. But I'm saying, like, logically, what would be the only way that it could be white? But you're telling me that a creature, is far less likely than that because you're talking about a creature that goes from the snow line down to the forest line. It would probably spend its life in a more comfortable zone where there's actual food. You know,
Maybe they go up to maybe they go above the snow line to like give birth and keep their young safe up there, and then they'll move back down once they're a certain age or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they could go up there, but they probably don't go up there for sustenance, though.
and that's what I'm saying. I don't think they would go up there for that. I think that they would stay below where the food's at. That's where I would stay. I would stay where the food's the easiest to get at. I mean, what
Yep.
are they eating above the snow line? What's up there?
I mean, you would have to find carcasses. That's what you're
Right.
dealing with. Like
Right.
you would be eating carrion, frozen
Uh
meat.
huh. Yeah, an
Which
occasional hiker, that freezes to
it-
death on.
it
you
could
know.
be a way for food storage. That might be why they are sometimes reported as going up into the higher
Oh.
elevations because they're storing food there.
So let's think about that for a second. I mean, so that does make sense.
Yeah.
Because we did that. Early, settlers did that. They had ice houses. It was the same kind of thing, same principle. I mean, early humans learned that if you froze the food, it lasted longer. So
Yep.
maybe these guys have figured that out. I mean, they're in the right environment. There's a
Could be.
snow cap above me. I'm gonna go up there and put my food up there. It's gonna last longer, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely make sense. It's something that would, for me, with some kind of primitive human ancestor or relict hominid, it would make sense that something would be up there.
Sure.
That they would
Sure.
utilize the natural environment to store food because bears have food cache.
Right.
And bears are just like
Bears, squirrels, almost every animal has a food
smart-ish
cache,
dogs.
right? I mean,
Yeah, squirrels do have food cache, and squirrels are just dumb.
right. But they have a food cache. That's what I'm
They do.
saying. So this
They
thing's
leave it.
supposed, yeah. Well, this thing's smart, so it makes natural sense to me that he would have a,
Yep.
if it's there, I think they would utilize it. That's what I'm getting at.
Agreed.
Well, I can tell you they definitely don't hunt up there because of all those dead bodies on Mount Everest. They would have picked
Right.
those clean.
You would think.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
That's free
So-
food. TV dinners.
Yeah.
Oh,
So what we're
sorry.
dealing with there, I think, is a creature that's primarily staying lower in the highland forests.
Goes up there for God knows what reason.
Right.
Comes back down.
Sometimes spotted there because like some of the best sighting reports come from people who are down in the lowlands, like farmers.
Mhm.
And there was one of them who was a potato farmer, and they were out there digging taters, and they get bum rushed by about a 6 foot dark furred creature and just get like shoulder tackled like an NFL linebacker hit them.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
like Wild Bill ran into you. I got you. Yeah.
right, like Wild Bill just came down and went, hey, and just got you. And those are some of the better reports, and they're
Yeah.
dark haired creatures. They're not described as having white hair. Again, pop culture did them just as dirty as the Mothman.
Right. Right. I think you're right. I mean, I think you're spot on that.
Now, because of proximity, for proximity's sake, because we're making our way back east here,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna jump on the Almas Day, which was attributed to it's the Russian Siberian kind of Bigfoot, and it's one of those things that were attributed to the those Russian hikers going missing.
Okay.
We covered that a little bit back in the old episode of
Dyatlov Pass.
Dyatlov Pass.
Yeah.
So the problem with the Almas is that there's not a whole lot of supporting evidence.
Sure.
There's just not a whole lot. Even in the local culture, there's not a whole lot of supporting evidence. Like when you're natives from that area, or kind of like when people go up, because there've been a bunch of expeditions prior to all the chaos going over in Russia, where people go over and they would ask some of the locals, like, "Oh yeah, do you know this?" And they're like, "The what? What is this?" And it almost seems to be like some kind of strange, like somebody heard about this once, wrote about it, and then that's what it was. And,
Okay. Yeah.
And it kind of grew of its own legs and took off.
Well, we know that they have strange legends there. So
there are, and then there's the story of the.
Can I bring up Dyatlov Pass real quick? Something about that bugs the crap out of me about the explanations that they all just died from hypothermia.
Yeah.
How did they die from hypothermia when a bunch of them had their tongues missing? I think some of them even had their eyes missing. That's something that a creature will go for first when they kill you. They'll get the easy bits first before they start tearing into you.
It's the same thing with a vulture.
And they were terrified so much that there was actually slash marks that came from the inside of the tents of them trying to get out of the tent from something. And I think it was actually toward the back of the tent. So they were trying to flee from something.
If I remember correctly, yeah, they kind of proved that. The cuts came from the inside, and theories have been thrown everywhere that they were trying to get away from either something that was outside the tent or something happened inside the tent, or and then they ran out into the snow blindly.
3 of them died because
apparently.
they fled and fell into a ravine that they didn't see because of the snowstorm.
Yeah.
Man, we gotta
it's
cover
a
that
weird
one
story.
day. That's an interesting story.
What's believed to be the strongest story in support of this is Almas comes from a Mongolian word, and this creature was captured, a wild woman, a female that they named Xana, and
I've heard the story.
She was said to have lived in these isolated mountains, and she was captured, and they believed her to have been an Almas, and they had her there. They were even like they beat her. They were very mean, and she was even raped. And then because of that, she gave birth to essentially a number of children. It says, and they were very normal in appearance. There's pictures of alleged Zana's children, and a lot of these children died in infancy, and some people believe this is attributed to the genetic incompatibility, but it worked for a few of the boys. Now, 2 of these boys, Zahanda and Kuwait, were, and then 2 girls, called Zenhar and Gamesa. They were born in the 1880s, and they were assimilated into the normal society. They married and had families of their own. Zana herself died in 1890. The skull of Kuwait, Kuwait, is still extant and was examined by Dr. Grover Krantz back in the 90s, and he pronounced it to be entirely modern with no Neanderthal features whatsoever. So Dr. Krantz pretty much put the kibosh on this, And Quit's tooth was examined back in 2008 with Monster Quest, the TV show that was produced by the guy who's we talked about last week doing the Legend Meet Science 2 and Legend Meet Science 1, Monster Quest, Mr. Doug Hychick. And he funded all that stuff, and the genetic tests were unable to identify what percentage of Quit's parentages was. And then it says that tests will continue.
That seems to be a common factor in these.
Yep. They run into these blank spots and then shut things down for whatever reason.
Well,
And
nuclear DNA, is tricky from what I understand. What is it, Brandon?
I was just asking, what do they describe the Zana look like? Like, was she completely hairy or just like partially hairy?
She was partially hairy, but like really, honest to God, when you look at some of the drawings of her, she looked like a Neanderthal.
So I was going to say, maybe that's what they are. Maybe they were just a small pocket population left over of Neanderthals that somehow survived.
And there's plenty of Neanderthal remains were found in the Caucasus.
Huh.
So, I mean, it's very plausible that this was just like the Flores man, a remaining small population. And there's a possibility that they're still out there. We don't know how many Zanas were there. We know that one was captured, allegedly. And, you know, when Dr. Krantz examined the skull, he classified it as modern with no Neanderthal features. You would expect some differentiation, but Dr. Krantz has been dead for a while, and he's missed out on a ton of the genome mapping, and wasn't there for 23andMe, and they've discovered all kinds of Neanderthal has spread through a whole bunch of people. So it's very plausible.
Yeah.
It is very plausible that it could have been when you hybridize, it might only take 1 or 2 generations to hybridize the Neanderthal to human, like modern human, to make them look modern human.
I'll give you a good example of that. There was natives in Russia claim that there was actually a small pocket of mammoths that were alive in Siberia around the time that Napoleon was trying to conquer Europe. I don't think they've ever actually found fossil remains of this, but that's what the natives claimed, that there was like a small herd of them that was still alive up there. So it's entirely possible that Neanderthals somehow were still around.
It's very possible. Now, moving further east, we're gonna pop up on the Yeren, which was kind of a short for people of the field, is what that translates to correctly. And this is essentially a hair-covered ape man, and they're so revered in Chinese culture that there's actually statues erected for their memorialization. They're protected even in some of their national forests there. There's huge tributes inscribed to them on rocks. And you know, it's the Chinese culture. They're very, very revered and very much believed to be out there in the forest.
Wow, that's interesting.
Huh. So not a matter of question. They just simply exist.
Yep.
Okay.
That's their take on it, and that they're the people of the forest, and these because people of the field and then people of the forest, whatnot, you know. But there's these beautiful bronze monument that was built that goes over top of the road, and it is a mother reaching out and like kissing at its young. So we'll try to get that picture and pop that up here.
That's cool.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
And it's a very beautiful statue. I love it. I'd like to actually sculpt it in miniature and have it. So again, we're over there. We're in the Far East, and we're not touching the Yowie because I'm working on actually getting us a Yowie interview from researcher in Australia. So we're going to leave Yowie off the table, but the Yowie is definitely a non-human primate that exists allegedly in the Australian outback. And there's a lot of sightings, and there's quite a bit of evidence that point to it being very similar to Bigfoot.
Okay.
The descriptions are almost identical, but again, I'm working on an interview, working on getting this an interview with one of the researchers down there, and we'll let you know when that pans out because it's going
I
to be.
remember hearing a Sasquatch Chronicles episode about a woman who lived in Australia for a little bit who had a group of Yowie that would torment her ranch that she lived on.
That's awesome.
Wow.
I mean, none of the encounters with the Yowie are ever pleasant. We're just going to leave it that way.
Yeah, they seem to be pretty aggressive.
Yeah,
from what
I
I've read
mean,
about them.
Wow.
everything in Australia is aggressive. We're just going to like,
Yeah,
Even
that's
kangaroos
pretty much-
all.
That's true.
yeah, everything in Australia is going to try to kill you. So why not have a giant ape man out there doing the same?
Sure.
So we're going to go back out. We mentioned him a few times going into this, and it is very possible that Homo floresiensis is still alive after allegedly going extinct 50,000 years ago. Gregory IV is urging that the indigenous knowledge should be incorporated and that we should investigate hominin evolution and go after this creature because there are pictures, there's video, there's footprints that match the bones, that match, like the proportions and everything match the creatures that were found in the Isle of Flores, that was dubbed the Hobbit Man, but it has since been redubbed as Homo floresiensis and the Flores Man because they have found that it is in the human lineage. What we're dealing with here is a creature that was discovered because of it was I can't remember what year it was. Massive earthquake caused a devastating tsunami on Indonesia, and because of this, it washed up bones. These bones were discovered to be attributed to what they called the Hobbit. I'm sure you guys all remember when that took the international media by storm.
Yeah.
Some more research has been put into this, and in a cave system, a very large cave system on the Isle of Flores, more remains were found, like intact bodies for the most part were found, and they've been able to again map the genome because they've been able to find so many remains and found that this is a very primitive human. And Gregory IV, he wrote this awesome book, and it's called Between Ape and Human. And I've listened to a lot of interviews. I haven't gotten a copy of it, but I've listened to Gregory give a whole lot of interviews on this. And he has tons of accounts of this ape man living in the Isle of Flores in the forest there and in other places throughout Indonesia. And for Gregory IV to be saying this, he's not some like crackpot. This is a extremely noteworthy anthropologist who's going out there and he's finding evidences like, wait a minute, this is worth really looking into because we have modern accounts and then we have these fossil records, and the modern accounts are matching up with these fossil records, and the modern accounts predate us discovering these fossil remains.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they found the fossil remains, then all these stories started popping up. These stories have existed for hundreds of years. And these experiences that have been happening with the people of Lao are, it goes way beyond the discovery, right?
Yeah.
And then back in the early days of Wild and Weird Radio, Ron, you remember that video that we played.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it first hit, we grabbed a hold of a video, and we'll throw a link to it down in the comments. But what it shows is this small, about, I don't know, 4 or 5 year old child-sized, naked humanoid with a little spear
or a magic wand. I'm not sure which.
or magic
Just
wand.
depends on what you describe to.
These guys are out. They've got a GoPro, right? So this is good, clean footage. And there's been analysis done on this footage. It has been validated that it has not been tampered with, right?
Yeah.
And so this GoPro footage or some kind of action cam, he's got it on his helmet. He's riding his dirt bike. He's taking off down the road. It's him and his buddies. Then all of a sudden, out of the side of the brush that's like, probably about 5 or 6 foot tall brush, this critter jumps out of it and stops and stands, sees the motorcycle probably nearly defecates itself, and it turns around and it runs at a clip that these guys on the motorcycle are having. Like they stop. They're like, "Whoa, what in the heck?" And then all of a sudden fire back up and start going after this thing, and it rounds a corner. And by the time they cut the corner, this thing's already probably 10, 15 yards past the corner, and you see it running at a full sprint and jump into the brush blindly. This is just like a deer would, right? Something that is so familiar with the forest there that it just jumps into the brush. Remarkable video, absolutely remarkable video. And then you compile that with other evidence that's been found, and it's astounding that stands up and to support that Homo floresiensis is still cruising around, and we're not the only humans on the planet right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're the only tampered with humans on the planet right now.
So what do you guys think about that with Homo floresiensis and the
there's another video
possibilities
too that
there?
I've seen where there's like one running between some trees
Yeah.
to get away from the person filming it. Both of those are pretty convincing to me. I think there's definitely something there.
Yeah, I don't think it's fake. I mean, I think it's real.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where the evidence right now it's too strong. And this when we're saying that we got this clear video footage, it's not like like I said, we're going to put links in the description for the video for this, but these are really good video.
Yeah.
It's not like somebody going out there and taking snapshots of the forest and throwing red circles up everywhere.
No.
Like this
it's impressive.
It's very impressive. And you combine that with the indigenous people's stories and their experiences of being stolen from by these creatures. It's hard to say that it's not another human that's still alive, like an old relict hominin that's still alive, that's still with us today. It wouldn't be the first time.
No.
We were talking about it in an article last week that, human history, the human genome, that what we know of today, and we looked at it in this very linear track that, this one turned into this one and this one turned into this one. It's all been blown out of the water in modern science now, in modern history. They're seeing that several of these humans lived together. We cohabitated. We warred with each other, and very good odds are that modern humans, what we consider modern humans now, are modern humans because we outbred everyone else. And we assimilated other peoples, other humans.
Yeah.
Can't beat them, join them.
Right. Exactly. Proof of that is in our genetics. We find Denisovan genetics. We find Neanderthal genetics, all in modern humans. They were able to map the Denisovan DNA because of these DNA tests that go out and people trying to find their history and find their lineages. They were able to map the Denisovan genome based off that, and a couple spare bones they had laying around somewhere, probably in the museum on a back shelf.
Wasn't it like primarily in like South Asia that had the Denisovan DNA?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of people in Southeast Asia and in the some of the Polynesian people, I believe. And the this is it's one of those things where we're not just now finding that we're not alone. Like we've not been alone this entire time. Everybody has always chalked it up to being folklore, right? That's this. Everybody, I remember I get in fights with people on the internet. Ron remembers this. I would get in fights with people on the internet
constantly
because people would talk about how like folklore and cryptozoology go hand in hand. A lot of the cryptids, hate mail, here it comes. A lot of these cryptid stories, they're creatures that are of like imagination.
Yes.
There are some that are very rooted in reality, but all of it, even the ones that are rooted in reality, they lump them into folklore. And folklore to me means story time. Like we're
Yeah.
gonna sit down by the fire and tell stories.
I mean, it literally translates to people, stories.
Yeah.
So, people's stories.
And
Story of
and
the peoples.
folklore, when we chalk up the existence of a creature to folklore, that it's just stories handed down, handed down, handed down, then we quit looking into the possibilities that these creatures would have a root in reality.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean I'm not, when I say that a lot of these creatures are made up, I'm talking about things like the Jersey Devil. That's folklore.
Right.
It's a story passed down by old Ben Franklin. You want to know where the Jersey Devil comes from? Look no closer than the $100 bill, and you find the culprit resting right on the face of it. And you look into stories. The chupacabra has been chalked up by many as folklore, but it's because of the American chupacabra, like Texican.
Texas. Yeah, the Texican chupacabra. Yeah.
Like the Mexico area, Texas area chupacabra is like this, mangy dog. But the chupacabra story was rooted originally with ufology and UFO flap in Puerto Rico, and then this reptilian-like creature. And when we start looking at stories as folklore, and we call them all folklore, we're doing a lot of it a disservice, because look at this. Look at modern history now. Look what we're doing. We dismissed an entire population of humans as folklore. I firmly believe that Florenziensis, Homo florenziensis, this Flores man, is alive and walking around in Indonesia right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we know for a fact that it's human. The DNA's been ran. It's human. This is another human on the planet with us at the same time that we've chalked up for hundreds of years as folklore.
Well, we were talking before the show about how when white people came in, they just basically bulldozed all of the Indian mounds around here because they didn't care about their culture whatsoever. Yeah. So that just shows you how little they have cared about native stories for so long and their culture and whatnot.
Yeah.
Shame. There's a lot of truth in there. So a lot of those stories, the make-believe stuff that they tie to those creatures, is basically to scare people from not getting too close to them, basically. Kind of like stories you tell little kids so they listen to their mom and dad, and you make up stories to scare them. That's where a lot of that.
Yeah, precautionary tales is what you're thinking about. Yeah.
The boogeyman.
The boogeymans.
It's not enough that it's an 8-foot tall ape that could rip your arm off. Let's add some other
that's
stuff.
going to scare me more than a shadowy boogie figure, probably. Just going to say.
Well, man, that's where the wood booger came from.
That's true.
That's where the name wood booger came from.
That's true.
And attributed to folklore.
That is true.
Man, I'm so amped for them to discover this officially. Like if they get one, which is going to be horrible that they're going to have to get one, because does it classify as murder because it's another human?
Well, yes.
I would say so.
Yes.
But science is going to be like, we got to shoot them. We're going to have to stick one in a case somewhere.
I don't know, man. I don't know. There's a lot of push on that right now. So
I hope they don't. I hope it doesn't come to that. I've got my fingers crossed for them to find a burial ground.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's other ways. Yeah.
Gregory Forth has talked to a gentleman, and this is like super, super recent news, that this guy knows where there's like a large area where they bury their dead.
Really?
Like, he knows where it's at. This guy knows where it's at. And I'm looking forward to see what comes out of this.
That's interesting.
Do they say how they bury them?
What is it?
Do they say how they bury them?
He didn't say how he, but like, this is just like, when I say this is fresh, I mean, this is just in the last few weeks.
Oh, okay.
Since this was recorded, this has been like the last few weeks that this Gregory Forth had mentioned, like being in touch with a guy from Indonesia who knows where they bury them.
Wow.
And it's because he knows where some have been buried that have been shot and killed.
Wow.
So not just that where these things routinely bury their people, but where like some locals had caught one trying to like rob them, basically stealing their stuff, shot them and killed them, and they buried it. So fingers crossed we can actually recover that.
Yeah.
And use that as our type specimen. Because if they're like this is even if it's just been in the last 50 years or so, we're gonna know. Like it'll come clean. That would hopefully count as the type specimen.
I've heard stories of people who supposedly shot Bigfoot, and when they go investigate the body, they break down crying because they look so human that they think they shot another person by accident.
Yep, and then they'll bury the body or do something to the body to get rid of it. I've heard some of those stories myself, and like based off what I saw, man, like I was at a distance. I couldn't make out facial features. The faces never turned towards me except for the little one, and it was. I've told Ron multiple times the movement, the way they moved, and the proportions and stuff. It was obviously not modern human, but they seemed human. It seemed very, very human in nature. Like not like me talking to you. It's not going to come and sit down and talk to somebody on a podcast, but it seemed very human. And who knows?
Yeah.
Like I have been of the mindset that we're dealing with some kind of a relic hominid for a while. Even when everybody else was talking about Gigantopithecus, I was on the some branch of another human species is what this thing's got to be. Because when you start, especially looking at the First Nations tribes and how they described the thing was the other tribe, the other people. Like,
yeah, it's a people. It's not a creature. It's not an animal. It's a people.
Yeah, it's a people.
It's a people, and I think that's the key thing here. It's a people.
Yeah.
Whether you want to call it whatever you want to call it, it's a people. So if it's a people, we don't call animals people. We don't call coyotes. That's a people. We don't call bears.
Nowadays, a lot of people call them the dogs people.
No, but what I'm saying is through history, we don't do that.
You're right. You're right.
And so when you say it's a people, that kind of means it's family. It's part of the human family.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, man. I mean, as far as the flesh and blooders go, that's the way I'm kind of thinking anyway.
So since we're on the topic, what do you guys subscribe to the theory that's been getting popular lately that we actually have different breeds of Bigfoot in North America, and that's why they're all described so differently?
I mean,
I can go multiple ways with that. Go ahead, Joe.
It's possible, but like I'm with Ron, it could go multiple directions. Like me and Brandon look close enough alike to be the same species, but then you look at Ron, and Ron could pass as something else. If like you get different descriptions, right?
Right.
Like if you had people that we're all human, allegedly, and but you get these descriptions. Ron has sharper facial features. I have rounded facial. Brandon has rounded facial features. Ron's are sharper. We're all still human. We're not subspecies. We're not breeds. I think that's what we're dealing with, personally, is that they're the same across the board, and there's just deviations between them because
subtle differences in appearances.
Yeah, subtle differences in appearances. Wide nose versus narrow nose. Really tall and thick versus average size and skinny.
Well, I could go for even the hair color stuff. I mean, you can morphology tells you that. I mean, come on.
Well, the argument that I hear most often is sometimes you'll get descriptions where one will look like a gorilla in the face, and then you'll get another one where it looks so human that it looks Native American. So like that's where a lot of people get that argument.
Yeah, and like I hate to say this out loud, but like there are a lot of stories. We've got one on camera and we've looked at it, Patty. What I saw didn't look exactly like Patty, but it looked close enough to be the same thing.
Patty to me looked more gorilla in the face than human from the horrible picture quality of that
Right.
camera that they had back then. But she looked
Yeah.
more gorilla to me than human in the face.
Well, if you look at a lot of Australopithecines, you're going to see the same kind of thing. And
Yeah.
if these
Yeah.
if these nest site DNA samples and some of the DNA samples that are coming out elsewhere that have come out showing more chimpanzee kind of bent.
I think what it is, you gotta give some credence to some of the native stories that Bigfoot would kidnap women and have babies with them. So
Oh, absolutely.
maybe there's some mixed
Hybrids.
genetics among them.
Why
Yeah.
not? Why not hybrids? I
Yeah.
mean, he's got a very good point, and that would change facial features. That would change body structure. That would change a lot of things.
It would.
And you have to look at also what you just said, Brandon. If we look at Patty, in particular, that's clearly female. I mean,
Mhm.
she's a female, and she has a lot of human anatomy to her, as well
Yep.
as it's a great mix. And if you look at the time period when that was taken, which would have been the 60s. We don't know how old Patty was, obviously, but we could say that she was fairly old, I'm sure, which would have put her back, possibly being born, in the 1800s, right? I mean, that's a
Yeah, she had a bit
possibility.
of gray on her.
So that's a possibility that this thing could have been born in 1800s. And
And
think about that. Think about
yeah,
what was going on in that area. There was
yeah,
settlers starting to show up,
yep.
in the
That's
1800s. Yeah, exactly. So, it's possible. It's absolutely possible that something like that was happening. Of course, the natives were already there, but imagine the natives were smart enough not to go over there and tick this thing off. They were also smart enough to continue to give offerings and not go out into the woods. But not these brilliant European settlers who were tracing along out there. They were just bait.
Well, it could also happen from the male spectrum too. Remember,
Oh, sure.
good old
Yeah,
Albert
absolutely.
Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah, Osman. Yeah, exactly. I
That's
mean,
not
it's
good.
absolutely. But what I'm saying is, I think the natives were smart enough not to get caught up in that mess for the most part.
Yeah, because their stories are mostly of kidnappings.
Yes.
And if they had a girl that had more red hair, like a red, like an auburny or red
So
kind of hair,
imagine what
she
these
was more
things.
targeted.
Bingo. I mean, obviously they tend to have like a reddish hair, right? So when they saw these Irish women, they probably just lost their crap, is what I'm saying.
So what we're saying, if we have any redheaded women who are
Just
in
don't
the
go in the woods. Just to
who would
stay out of
like
the
to
woods.
join the High Strangers Collective and go out on an expedition,
We'll use you as
um,
bait. That's what we're saying.
not as bait. No, we never as bait. We wouldn't do that. That'd be inhumane.
Yes, he would. He would totally use you as bait. Don't think he wouldn't. So,
So you're trying to get a redhead woman who's menstruating to go out in the woods.
there are people who actually do that.
There are, yeah.
Yes,
Really?
yes, absolutely. There has been multiple experiments done with that. So,
Kathy Strain used to go out with
Mm.
groups of women all the time. Now I don't know necessarily if they were menstruating, but I mean, in a group of women, you'll at least have one. I'd say we've got a large enough group. And
well, it's hard to say, but the whole thing is, pheromones are completely different,
yeah,
and there's a very good chance that there was a reaction there. So, yeah, I'm being absolutely.
Plausible.
Yeah, I'm being absolutely legit when I say that you can imagine, these whatever these creatures were, they were used to seeing natives dark hair, you know, and then all of a sudden here comes these, fair skinned and with redhead, very fair skinned, individuals with red hair. I mean, they probably had never seen anything like that before, and it's very possible that they did indeed go in and take them. So it's possible, man. And that could be where a lot of your, a lot of these body shapes came from. Their own hybridization project, so to speak.
Yeah.
Might even go as far back as when Leif Erikson and them were first settling in
Well, Leif
was it
Erikson, when he
Labrador
first
where
came
they were
in, the
settling at?
story that he submitted, essentially, he wrote about seeing these large hairy creatures.
Yeah, they actually had a miniature war with them.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think our conclusion is pretty much what our conclusion is. Even when we're talking this weekend, we included everything possible. It's all the same. There's something out there.
Yeah.
There's something out there, whether it be a member of, a distant human relative, or whether it be something completely different. There's something out there. It's intelligent and it is large. And in case of the Flores, it's a little small, but it's still very
Well,
intelligent.
I firmly believe that, you know, there is a hominid that is cruising around Indonesia, both in Sumatra
Hmm.
and in the Flores area. And I'm curious to see what happens. I mean, there are some people who are theorizing that Orang Pendek and Flores man might even be related.
Well, that kind of makes sense.
The
So,
proximity would make. I mean, they're
hmm hmm
you look, here I have to say, you look on a globe, it's like that far apart.
right. But still, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying it makes sense. And we know that cultural developments, somehow cultures have developed the same across, the globe.
I'd be interested to see what that area looked like during the Ice Age when the water levels were a lot lower. Would
Oh
it have
yeah.
been possible to walk between them at that point? Because I know you could walk across the Mediterranean at a certain point during the Ice Age because the water levels were so low.
So they say. That's correct.
I mean, we're all dealing with the Indonesian archipelago here. If these things could swim too, I mean, it might even be doable.
No, man, they made boats. We've been over this. They
Yeah. Yeah.
they have a navy. Well, anyway, I think that we're all in agreement that there's something out there. Um, and as far as the flesh and blood model goes, we definitely can't ignore it. So if it is flesh and blood, then I think we've shown where it could have come from.
Yeah.
And congratulations, it's you.
Yeah. They're they're your ancestors.
They probably are. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time now before we start hearing a little bit more about Bigfoot research making its comeback, so to speak, in the big way.
That's what I'm
Uh,
hoping.
Kind of like what we're seeing with the UAP thing. I think that's going to be the next thing.
Because
Here's
man,
what
if
we
you,
gotta do: we gotta convince Bob Bigelow that
Yeah,
Bigfoots and aliens are connected.
yeah. Well, they
Then we
could
get
be.
him to dump millions of dollars into researching it.
Well, they could be. Let's be real. They
yeah.
absolutely could be. Something could have, decided to manipulate DNA a long time ago, and hey, grabbed a
Hey, let's have
couple of
Ron talk.
those, you know, grabbed a couple of those things out of the woods and did a little bit of experimentation, and bingo, bango, and
So
poof, there we
I
are.
entirely think that if they're going to grab a random farm animal, why would they not want to grab an 8-foot ape out of the woods and look at it and see, how this thing came to be? Why would
Right.
they not want to do that?
Well, if they created it,
Yeah, well,
maybe
that's
that's
true.
why. And what is clear here is that call them what you will, but for the lack of a better word for most humans, aliens did not create cows. The ball is in your court.
there's a rampant amount of cattle mutilations picking up. Just throwing it
Yes.
out there.
Yeah, I'm keeping
Yes.
an eye out for those on
Yeah.
the news.
Yep. They're not human mutilations, they're cattle mutilations. Anyway.
Well, a lot of people don't realize too. It's not just cattle. It's also like horses that get mutilated like that, and
Yep.
donkeys. Sometimes
Yeah.
even goats. I've even
Yeah.
heard of goats
Yeah,
getting
there's a lot of
mutilated.
stuff. A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, guys, any final thoughts?
Not really. No, I
I think
think
we covered it.
I think we covered it just because I mean, the evidence is there. Again, there's something there, and it does point toward the human tree, and it probably is that if it's not something else that's a lot weirder.
Brandon?
Yeah, I totally believe a lot of those are either a possibility or I think they're real. A few of them I do think are real. Some of them I think are a possibility, but there's just not enough evidence of it. But to summarize it, I think the truth is out there, and we just got to find it.
I dig it. I'm excited about the possibilities with this Flores man and the discovery of that, and what implications it could have for the state of modern day cryptid and modern day Bigfoot research together. Because there was another just recently in France, there was a cryptid that was classified, and the fox cat, and it was thought to have been folklore for hundreds of years, and they actually caught one in a box trap, and it is a new species, and here it is, 2023, and we're there. Everybody's saying that we're not going to discover anything longer than a few centimeters, and we just discovered a whole cat, like a 15-pound cat. But yeah, there's a lot that's happening, and it's exciting, and the implications it could have for modern day research, I think, are huge, because it might even help get some backing from some educational institutions for Bigfoot research that would be more open and less behind closed doors, because there is stuff going on behind closed doors that we're not privy to, the public. But I think it would be interesting to see how much of that would become more public once this Flores man thing, the modern Flores man, is validated. So, well, I believe that's going to wrap us up. And next week's episode, we've got a fun one. There's two options. It's going to be a OBC wrap up, which we might wind up making its own video. Or next week, you've got a really good one that we've been digging into and working on for quite a long time, and it's the owl and alien connection. So I think that's going to be an amazing topic. You guys are going to love it. And in the meantime, if you want to keep supporting Wild and Weird Radio and keep it free for eons and eons to come, we have a ton of stuff that is getting ready to go up on the website. We've got merchandise out our ears that we're going to be able to put up and get out into your hands. You'll be able to order directly from the website, wildandweirdwv.com. Click on the shop tab, and you'll be able to get that sent directly to your home and support Wild and Weird Radio in the process. And
there's a couple of things already up there, so
Yep.
there's that. We've got a couple of the patches already up there, so just go grab you. And I got to tell you guys, I've seen some patches, but these are strong. These are really good quality.
Really good. Chris did a great job on those.
Yeah, he did a really good job with the stitching on these things.
Bringing these things to life.
Yeah, he brought them to life, and they look really great. So it's an original design. You want something from us? There it is. Go grab you a couple of these while they're still in stock.
Yep. And every purchase that you guys make, it goes towards supporting Wild and Weird Radio and our research efforts. And it also helps us make more stuff. So it generates content, it generates merchandise, and it generates results in the field. So you guys are directly contributing and can feel like you're being part of the collective, so to speak. Even if you're not able to get out and beat around the woods with us, you can support us in other ways and support the research effort and support Wild and Weird Radio by just going out and clicking a like and a share. That goes a long way. We are so close to reaching our next milestone on YouTube that it is not funny. I believe by the end of the month, we're going to hit that, and we're going to have a big party. Then we're also, we're out and about. You want to catch us somewhere, you want to come hang out with us, we've got Wood Booger Jamboree coming up. It's free for you guys to attend in Racine, West Virginia. It supported the local community in great ways. We had a ton of local vendors, as well as our fellow cryptid vendors that run around the shows and are on the show track with us. It's Saturday, May 20th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's going to be an absolute blast if last year was any indicator. And then after that, you're going to be able to catch us a few weeks after that at the Withville UFO Festival. That is going to be an absolute ball. Anybody who wasn't there last year missed out. This year is going to be amazing once again. We're going to be presenting a topic this year. Is going to be great. You're going to love it. And it's the Case for Contact is what it's called. It's going to be a fantastic demonstration of all of the research we've been putting out.
Are we alone? Can we make communication with these things and contact with these things? Are they trying to contact us? And has there been any actual proof of this? And yes, we're going to look at all that stuff and a whole lot more, plus some video that hasn't been released yet.
Yep.
So yeah, it's going to be a great one. It's going to be a great one.
And then beyond that, guys, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We appreciate every download, every view that we get. You guys are awesome, supporting us week in, week out. Hang out with us on Thursdays on the live episode. You won't regret it. Those live episodes have been an absolute ball and tons of community engagement. We've created an awesome little community that is great. I've never sat in a chat room as long as what I've sat in with the live show and not seen any fights break out or mudslinging. We've got a great little group of folks.
We actually were on there for 4 hours last.
Last week was a 4-hour episode. It was incredible.
It was madness,
but
absolute madness, but absolutely fun and very informative. We had Dewey on again.
Yep, the Deucer came back on. That was, and I got a feeling you're going to be seeing more of the Deucer from time to time.
He'll pop in from time to time. He's got a lot of subjects, a lot of topics, So, but yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, definitely drop by and hang out with us. For a little bit. You don't have to be there for 4 hours, but drop by and hang out with us. And if you want to stay 4 hours, we won't stop you.
Well, guys, thank you all for joining us again for this episode. Hopefully we see some of you out tomorrow at OBC. If you do, just drop by the table. We'd love to talk to you and hang out with you. And till next time, everybody, remember, if you go out in the woods and you have red hair, there's a good possibility something's out there in the woods staring at you. Stay wild and weird, everybody.